Okay, so on the rise, we're picking the ball up on the strings as it comes up from the bounce. So what are some examples of this? A half volley for sure. If I'm up at the net and I've got to play a half volley, that is clearly a ball that I'm taking on the rise. It's elevating off the ground. What about a short hop? I'm here on the baseline. The ball's going to come in right around the baseline, ultimately giving me really no time to do anything more with it than short hop it. Okay, so yes, that is also on the rise. You know, I took it right as it's bouncing up. But what's the real idea here of on the rise? What's the time where we would really want to use this? It would be that ball that Mark would hit that's probably landing a little bit shallower. And rather than let it bounce high and come back to me, I'm going to do this. Okay, that's really the example that I want us latching onto today for this on the rise lesson. Now, why do I need to be able to do that? Why is it important? The idea is simply take time away from my opponent. Yes, at the start of a lot of rallies, you know, I might want to get my feet wet, get my timing down. I might back off the baseline on a couple high floaty balls. But ultimately, if I'm playing really effective, quality, attacking tennis, I've got to start to learn to be able to take that ball on the rise to give my opponent less reaction time and be more in an advanced position in the court to do some damage, which really, as we know, doesn't occur all that often from deeper behind the baseline. How do we anticipate hitting on the rise, and what's the proper footwork to use? So, with regard to anticipation, our first idea here, I think you would all agree, our standard ground stroke position is a good 4 to 5 feet behind the baseline. So if Mark hits a standard ball with a little bit of topspin to me, okay, I'm in a pretty good spot right here to hit a nice waist-high ball, right? So where did this shot land from Mark? Somewhere up in here. So between the bounce of that ball and where my contact would be, I don't know, what's that, about 20 feet of distance? So the idea of anticipation with more of a standard ball like that is not that appropriate because I have so much time to read the bounce. Now, with an on-the-rise ball, take a look at how close I would have to be to the bounce of the ball to hit this effectively. Okay, so now I'd like to strike this ball about here. How much closer am I to that bounce between my bounce and my contact point? Obviously, that distance shrinks a ton. I don't know, maybe 4 to 6 feet, given the ball itself, little wind condition, whatever you may have. It's a lot closer between my position and contact on an on-the-rise ball. So back to the idea of anticipation, we don't want this feeling that we're, you know, 4 or 5 feet behind the baseline. We got to get a lot closer to the bounce. So what occurs? We start sprinting in. We get this kind of over urgency, and we might rush the shot, might just kind of fudge the shot up. So what I like to do is really be aware of when I've hit a really quality ball from my standard baseline position. So Mark, go ahead and feed me a good kind of deep ball here. Okay, so if I hit that and Mark goes running that ball down and gets to it, I think his position's pretty bad, to be honest. So I'm hoping that I can take the next ball on the rise. So my anticipation idea is not just to run in, because I don't know what he's hit yet, but it's definitely to come up and cut off about 4 feet of tennis court, get near the baseline. Now if he does float it, I can take a more comfortable move into this on the rise position. And if he somehow pulls off an all-world backhand, what's the worst that's going to happen? I got to back off that 4 feet again but I'll have time to do so. So anticipating that your opponent is in a position to hit something a little bit shorter, move yourself up onto the baseline so that you're cutting down the distance between you and where contact is going to occur for on the rise, because we want to get there really smoothly to execute the shot well. All right, so now that gets us into our second idea, which is footwork. Okay, how do I kind of move up to this ball to set a great attacking forehand? Simply put, I love this idea of hopscotch. Okay, obviously I want to have a nice burst forward, but I don't want to overrun the ball, and I also don't want to jog so much that maybe the ball starts dropping. And now what should have been an on the rise ball is down low again, and we're hitting up to it from no man's land, just not attacking tennis generally. Okay, so the idea is hopscotch. I'm going to go from here. I'm going to make a nice kind of sprint move for a couple steps, but then I want to separate the feet really nice and wide to get my legs loaded to very possibly spring up to hit the ball. Okay, so you've all done hopscotch before. Square, 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 2 squares. That's the idea we want to have. There's no exact number of the amount of squares to get me to there, but once contact is kind of in play, separate the feet into 2 squares so we get that wide base and can explode on the ball. Let's try to take one here. Okay, so nice direct line, and then I get that wide stance between my feet. Okay, so not a ton of hitting in that segment, and I know we really want to see how to hit on the rise, but answering those 2 ideas, those 2 questions are super key. We've got to know that anticipation is super important. Seeing when this opportunity comes up has to be there, and then how to get to that ball. We don't want to run past it. We don't want to loaf up there. We want to explode a couple steps and then set the stance wide so we can really tee off on the shot. So anticipation and footwork are really, really important there. All right, so what changes are there between my standard ground stroke and my on the rise ball? So let's open with a couple swings of mine on the forehand, just in my standard ground stroke position. Let's look at about 3 or 4 of these here, Mark. One more, Mark. Okay, so let's start with backswing. I think a lot of you, if not all of you, would totally agree with me that if I decided on the rise not to make a loop, how awkward it would look. It would be something like coming up and my racket going straight back. Just incredibly awkward feeling. So we knocked that idea off. Simply put, set the racket up just like you would for your standard ground stroke. Okay, now contact should be occurring somewhere around chest level to shoulder height. On a really solid struck on the rise ball, that's where contact should be. And because my position on the rise ball advances inside the court, the idea is we generally want to hit down into the tennis court a lot more so than from back here. Back here we are working the ball up over the top of the net. So if my backswing sets at the same height and I'm trying to work a tennis ball down into the court, obviously I think it makes sense that I can't drop the racket really low. Again, I'm in a position now where I'm forward, but I'd be hitting up to this ball. So I do not want to see the loop drop anywhere past the height of where contact's going to be. And like I said, there's some wiggle room there on contact. Chest height, shoulder height, I think for a taller guy like myself, chest height makes a lot of sense. That's still definitely much higher above the top of the net. If you're a little shorter than I am, closer to your shoulder is maybe better, just to ensure that you've got that net clearance. Once you're above the height of your head, you start to lose the swing a little bit. So that's kind of the window right there. And if I'm going to hit the ball downward, I can't let this racket drop below the height of that ball, okay? So there's the backswing. I come up, nice high loop, but just the drop to about here. I've still got a ton of lag built into this swing, so that's how I'm going to explode on the ball. But this really should be the look of how the racket gets from the backswing into contact. We want to get rid of this idea because now we're working up over the height of the net, and I'm not sure how I'm going to truly attack my opponent that way. Okay, so still a loop on the backswing, drop to about the height of contact, and then the visual I want you to have is that whatever that precise height is, for me it's at my chest, I want the idea that there's a table out there, dishes, plates, napkins, all that stuff, and when I drop to the height of the ball, I'm just clearing off that table, clearing everything off, and therefore I'm definitely not like slamming my racket down like a lot of us get stuck doing, and I'm definitely not going below the table and banging up into it. It's really this clearing idea. So let's have a look at a few of those. That's my backswing to the height of the ball with the idea that I'm clearing the racket across the table. Okay, so that literally, I honestly, you guys, I don't follow that idea. I've hit that shot enough that I generally just go up and hit it. Everything tends to fall into place. But because I just described it as much as I did, I was really thinking, okay, where's the height of the ball? I felt like I stopped my racket right there. And then I actually really thought about clearing the table, which I normally wouldn't do. It's one of the better on the rise balls I think I've probably hit in a while. It just felt perfect. So I think the goal really is practice it enough where you're dropping to the height of the ball and clearing, and hopefully sooner than later you don't actually have to think of it that way. It'll just be a timing mechanism and a swing mechanism that you already have, and you just go up and hit the shot. Okay, now when do I initiate that forward swing? We talked about contact, so I'm working back a little bit here. When do I initiate the racket going into the ball? This is something that causes people a ton of trouble because they're super eager to hit it and they maybe swing a little too early, or as we all know, we like having a little bit of extra time in tennis. We swing a little too late and things get thrown off. Let me see if I can mistime these on the rises a little bit here. This would be maybe a little bit too early. Yep. So I'm actually above the ball, kind of smothering it. If you can see that, I'm just kind of smothering the top of it. I don't even know what it's going to feel like to hit this late, but I guarantee you I'm not going to like it. Yep. Okay, and there's the late swing. And yet I'm in an advantageous position up here and just hit a framer off the back fence. So that's how crucial the timing of starting this swing is. So pay really close attention here. When we get up to this ball, assuming we've positioned correctly, we've gotten within that, 4 to 6 foot window of the ball. Mark, go ahead and feed me one real quick. Okay, so there it is right there. Okay. Catching that ball, obviously I don't have to catch it till it gets to the height of my hand. But swinging a racket, my racket is what has to be at that spot at the time the ball gets there. Okay, so what I think is really key is understand you have to start delivering the racket to this spot where I just caught the ball, obviously before the ball gets there. Now, should I swing before the ball hits the ground? It's coming too slow. I hope you can all see that. When Mark feeds this ball, it's coming too slow and floaty for me to think that I would have to swing before it hits the ground. So rule that out of the timing book. That would be almost kind of that short hop. Mark, if you feed me a short hop real quick, I think you guys will see I'm actually swinging before before the ball hits the ground because my window is so little to get to contact there. So with this on the rise, what I want you to do to time that forward motion is right after it hits the ground, and it's within that first kind of foot coming up off the ground, start the swing. Because unless you just have a 110 mile per hour forehand, something that just moves insanely fast, the time it takes that ball to get from about a foot off the ground to most players' shoulder is the time it's going to take the racket to go from setting back to contact here. So watch this in slow motion. You're going to see when I time this swing in the forward motion with relation to the bounce. Let's go one more there. Okay, and again, that's something where I don't think I always concentrate on, hey, when do I time this? I just hit it. But talking myself into watching the bounce and starting the swing right when I saw it in that first foot, two balls that I really felt like I had great timing on. So even somebody in my position where I feel like I do this already, a reminder is excellent. Okay, so to recap that, still make your loop. Don't drop the racket below the height of contact. Meet that ball around chest to shoulder height. And then absolutely ensure that good timing. Wait for the ball to bounce, but not much after it hits the ground. Initiate that forward swing. You should be off and running to some really cool attacking on the rise forehands. Okay, so I think that was pretty forehand biased. So I want to take a few minutes and look at the backhand. Now, obviously some similar ideas, but a few things change when I'm hitting an on the rise backhand. And let's get into this first by saying that I personally think that my backhand from a deep position is more of a liability than my forehand from a deep position. So as often as I'm like looking to attack an on the rise forehand because I don't want to be hitting back here, it's probably more important that I utilize this shot from time to time on the backhand so that I'm not hitting these really kind of tough, deep backhands. I just do not like being back there. I feel like I break down pretty easily. Okay, so a couple ideas remain absolutely the same. Contact should be about chest to shoulder height. Absolutely. The idea of me clearing the table is very much in play. One thing that I really feel on the backhand side though is just the way the body sets the shot up. I'm not open stance and I'm not going to be jumping at that point. Okay, on the forehand we got up to this side and I definitely feel that spring off the ground. With the backhand, watch closely. I'm going to still feel confident in this shot, but I'm not going to need that lift off the ground. I feel like it would really throw my timing off. So let's look for those couple positions. High backswing, standard, clear the table, and then watch how the legs respond. Okay, try one down the line here. Yeah. And so again, if that's slightly less explosive for me, if I feel like I maybe don't target the court quite as well with the backhand as I do with the forehand, again, what is that shot is saving me from though is constantly drifting back, playing defensive backhands from behind the baseline. You saw how that ball came in. It was pretty high. He's got some wind behind the ball helping the bounce. If I don't go up there to take that shot, I'm 10 to 12 feet behind the baseline. So definitely get out there. It's fine to make yourself feel like the forehand is more the weapon with the on the rise idea, but utilize it on the backhand too. Again, what do we know? It cuts down my opponent's reaction time. It puts me more in an attacking position. And if anything, even if I don't hit it great all the time, it at least gives Mark a different look So he's not just trying to bounce high balls into my backhand. He's going to have to start to mix up his arsenal if I'm changing positions when he's trying to attack my backhand. Okay, so how do we practice on the rise? Obviously, you know, I don't think a lot of you out there are playing your tennis all by yourself. It'd be really helpful and very, very kind of important that you ask somebody to come out as a partner, not just to play a set all the time, not just to play point games, but come out as a partner so that you and the partner can work together on some of these important ideas. So today I have Mark here. And the first way that I think it's easiest to demonstrate a good practice drill for on the rise is just a little progression that actually begins with shadow swings. All right, so Mark's going to be kind of the student here, or the focus for the hitting. And, you know, he knows exactly what we've discussed with regard to backswing, you know, contact point, shape of the swing, clearing the table, all that. So Mark, what I'm going to put you through is just move up a few steps inside the baseline, and I want you to hit 3 shadow swing on the rise forehands and then recover back after each one, okay? All right, so here we go. And I would actually say he needs to swing a little closer to his shoulder. Perfect. Notice how there it is, right there. Okay, so he actually improved by the 3rd one. So don't just do shadow swings thinking, oh, I'm getting my body moving. Really feel out. That's the best way to feel out all those important points we're making, because we're not distracted by the tennis ball. He finally got that 3rd swing up closer to shoulder height. I can guarantee that would have been the best result if we had had a ball in play. Now, that's obviously one he could do on his own without me here. Same with the 2nd one in the progression. Mark's got a couple balls in his pocket. What I want him to do is come up, toss a nice high floaty ball, and hit an on the rise forehand, recover back. Part of this is footwork, right? Footwork and timing is really what we're working on when we discuss on the rise. So we never want to just necessarily be stationary working on this shot. So Mark, let's toss about 3 on the rise forehands up. The footwork's obviously key, the timing of the hit, and then recovery afterwards. Great shoulder height ball. Legs are really loading. Awesome. And one more. So those are great. That, I can't tell you how important that practice is for him. And that's without a partner on the court. Now, the one thing that ball that he's tossing to himself is not providing is the idea of the bounce not only elevating but pushing into you, which would obviously occur when the ball is coming from an opponent on the other side. So next step in the progression, again, this is a partner becomes super key here, because they're not going to be hitting a ball, but you guys could take turns on this. Station a partner off to the side, and it's a hand toss drill. Talk to the pros all the time about this. Pros and their coaches a lot of times warm up with hand toss drills. They're getting the right swing executed to the ball. The timing's a little easier, so the confidence grows, and then we're just attempting to put the same swing in play with a little trickier timing as the ball starts coming in from the other side of the court. So Mark, you're just progressing. You hit some great swings on that last hand toss drill. I want to see the same strokes. I'm just putting the ball in play for you. I'll still see that recovery back after each one. You ready? Okay, here we go. Awesome. Okay, nice recovery. Here he is. Okay, so that's position a little bit. He positioned a little farther from the ball, caught it a little too far out in front. Let's improve the position. Yep, and here we go. One more. Okay, so he missed a couple. Who cares? This is why we practice. If he was perfect right now, why would he be doing this? Okay, he mishit one because the positioning was a little off. There is some wind out here that affects it. So what happens? He improves his positioning and his focus, and therefore his timing gets better. The one that goes into the net dropped it off a little too much. So I saw him make an adjustment by that fourth swing where he cleared the table a little more, and now he's hit a great one on that last ball. So by no means, just because the ball is coming out of somebody's hand, do you out there have to feel like you're supposed to be perfect on those. We are still in practice, and we're just trying to improve. So don't be too hard on yourselves. Okay, so now the next progression would be to have the ball be delivered from the other side of the court. And obviously now this is a little more realistic, and Mark's going to again have to improve his positioning and his timing because the ball presents a little more of a challenge. Now, if he does that, the swing should not have to change. Be clear on that. Don't change the stroke just because the ball's coming from farther away. Here we go, Mark. Great ball. Let's backpedal. Good. Excellent. Let's go one more. Sweet stuff right there. Okay, so pretty impressive that he made those look easier than out of the hand. But what I think that's a testament to is this progression idea. We go from a shadow swing with no ball. We go to a hand toss. Or excuse me, yeah, a hand toss from himself. We go to a hand toss from a partner. We finally see the real deal, and we've put the practice in, and things are just falling into place for him there. Okay, so now we would get into a drill situation where we're actually both hitting the ball. And I think the simplest way to give ourselves practice is just to hit up the middle. And when I say go, Mark knows that I'm going to be floating a ball. Okay, he's going to come up, hit on the rise. Makes it great. If I'm able to keep the rally going, I will. If not, we put a new ball into play. And then he'll say go to me. That cues me to come up and hit it on the rise as well. So we're getting turns hitting these on the rise shots. Okay, so Mark up the middle. All right, up the center, nice and easy. All right, Mark, go. Beautiful. Okay, so yeah, pretty scripted, but it's still an actual situation here. We're hitting topspin from deep. He knows when he's about to hear me say go, he's anticipating a little bit. Like we talked about, we want to anticipate so there's less distance to travel going up inside the court. Now it would most likely be my turn. All right, so nice steady up the middle. Got my standard spacing. All right, so again, pretty scripted, but I just got great practice. I got my wind going a little bit. I'm working the ball. I'm feeling that transition forward. One thing I will say about the progression drill we did, everything I had Mark hitting up in here, I had him recover back after because we're just working on that one shot. So we need to be coming from the baseline to hit all those progression shots. If you'll notice now, when he and I come up inside the court in a rally situation, even though that ball didn't come back, I felt myself ready to go forward. And that's what all of you out there should be doing as well. In an actual hitting situation, we don't then back up because we want to keep the pressure on the opponent. And if there's one or two more balls to hit off a good on the rise shot, it should most likely come from the net in the form of a volley or an overhead.